Thank you very much, as I said before, for joining me today. Today, the session is around revenue management, and hopefully, I'll be able to show you how Synergist takes the guesswork of managing revenue within your agency. So, before we start, just a quick introduction for those who don't know me. I'm Steve, I'm one of the co founders and directors here at Agency Works. I've been working with agencies for well over 25 years now. That's all the way from small independents all the way to the more kind of large integrated agencies. And also, we are the exclusive implementation and client success partner for Synergist, which is the UK's leading agency management system. Okay, so if you're working in an agency finance, ops, leadership, then you'll know this already. Revenue recognition is a bit of a minefield. So you've got projects that run over multiple months, you've got retainers billed up front, phase payments, change requests, and somehow you're expected to produce a clean, accurate monthly profit report that everybody across the agency can trust. So it's no surprise that finance teams often end up second guessing the numbers or spending hours doing manual adjustments. So during this session, which should last typically around 20 minutes, I'm going to show you how Synergist allows you to forecast with much more confidence. So we'll start with forecasting because we can use billing plans in Synergist that clearly map out when revenue is expected to land, whether that's across long-running projects, retainers, or stage payments. That gives you instant visibility on what's coming down the line and helps you spot gaps or risks early and makes forecasting much more reliable. Next, then we'll look at revenue recognition, which is the bit that usually causes the most headaches, and we'll show you how the system tracks earned versus billed revenue. So revenue is recognized in the period that it's actually earned, not just when it's invoiced. So that hopefully means no more inflated months followed by dips, and it's a much more true picture of how the business is really performing. Next, we'll walk you through how Synergist lets you analyze jobs and client profitability based on properly recognized revenue alongside costs and time. So this will help you understand which work is genuinely profitable, which clients are underperforming, and where the margin is being eroded without it being obvious from the top line numbers. And then finally, we'll cover how all of this feeds into month-end reporting. So generating clear monthly reports to support revenue adjustments or automatically posting recognized revenue into your accounting system. So reducing manual work, speeding up the close process and giving your finance teams and accountants a bit more confidence in the numbers. Now, it's one thing for me to tell you how great the system is. I think it's even more powerful when you hear it directly from the businesses that are using it day to day. Now, this quote I think really captures the shift we often see. So, what often starts as a project management tool quickly becomes a powerful financial tool because the data is structured, it's consistent, and it's live. So, instead of finance teams spending time manually processing spreadsheets or reconciling numbers, they're using Synergist as a single source of truth, not just to report performance, but to lead meetings and drive commercial conversations with much more confidence. I also appreciate that some of you who have joined today may already know about Synergist. Some of you might be new to it. So just a little bit of background before we dive into the demo. Synergist, as I said before, it is the UK's number one agency management software, not just claimed by me, but also as recently reported in the agency bench press survey. It's trusted by around 500 agencies nationwide, highly configurable. So whether you're running a creative agency, digital marketing, PR firm, or any other type of professional service business, it can be tailored to fit the way that you work. So, why do we have so many clients? Well, a lot of you might recognize this picture. Lots of businesses and agencies end up stitching together a stack of tools. So whether that's spreadsheets for budgets or briefs or pipeline, resourcing, project tracking, invoicing, it's all very slow, it's all very fragmented, and it's really hard to get kind of a clear picture of what's actually happening across the business. Whereas Synergist brings all these things together, saving time, improving visibility, and helping you run hopefully much more efficiently and much more profitably. Okay, so that's the background done in terms of what we're doing today and who we are. I'm now going to switch screens. For that, I just need to turn my camera off and drop into the live Synergist demo. So bear with me a second. Okay. Okay, so Okay, so hopefully now you can all see my live Synergy system. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is, and I'm going to start at job level because I think this is where revenue management really begins. So, and I'm weirdly for a revenue management demo, starting with a Gantt chart, but here we have a job and it could, as most jobs do, span multiple months. And you can see that visualized in the Gantt chart. Now, if you're not recognizing revenue, then agencies can still use this idea of what we call a billing plan to simply structure and schedule when you're expecting to invoice this project. So by setting out the total contract value, phasing it into milestones, you can get a kind of clear picture of exactly what's to be billed and when. However, if you're also using the system to recognize revenue as well, often in line with delivery, your billing plans become even more powerful. So they allow invoicing, but they also allow revenue recognition to be aligned, separating out what's planned to be billed versus what's planned to be earned. So in this example, we've quoted this job at around 52K. So in my billing schedule, I'm planning to invoice upfront, but I'm also planning to recognize the revenue in a future period. And that could be tied to maybe certain key dates, milestones, or it might be tied to when the work is being delivered, as we saw in the previous Gantt chart. Now, this gives us two important forecasts. First, what we expect to invoice and when, and second, what revenue should be recognized, and again, based on delivery, based on milestones, whatever else. So in this example, the 52K project is going to be delivered over 3 months. We don't want month one looking artificially inflated just because we invoiced early. So the billing plan allows us to forecast cash flow, align invoicing with milestones. It removes guesswork and makes forecasting much more structured. Also, if you're aware of any potential costs, so you can put kind of potential third-party costs in here, these can be added to your bidding plan to produce a gross profit forecast too. Okay, so that's kind of planning of it. Once the work is in progress, though, invoices can be generated directly from the billing plan structure. So instead of manually creating invoices, we can create invoices against the billing plan or agreed contract lines. So I can simply click on the line I want to invoice, and we can invoice, and it automatically produces me an invoice based on that data. Again, I can do this for an individual job, or I could do it as a batch process across multiple jobs. So that means like no more over invoicing, no billing outside of agreed scope, and you get full visibility of what's been billed versus what's remaining. Okay, so that's the planning. That's the kind of billing schedule which we'll see being pulled through to reports in a second. Now I'm going to move to another tab on the job, which is invoicing. Now, for the purpose of this webinar, I mentioned I've already raised a £52,000 invoice up front to the client. However, as the delivery potentially hasn't started, I've decided that we're going to recognise none of this and I've deferred the full amount. So although the invoice has been raised, none of that revenue is recognised in your P&L at this stage and it's sitting correctly on your balance sheet. Again, I'll come to that in a second. Then, as delivery begins, it's appropriate to recognise revenue. We can start to trigger those revenue recognition transactions in line with whatever we've planned in the billing plan, or it may be based on job progress. And that's where Synergist separates out what's been billed from what's actually been earned. So you can see here, invoiced, we've got a deferral balance. Then I've decided to invoice nothing to the client because we've invoiced up front, but I've decided to recognise half of it, which again has left the other half sat as deferred balance. And because the billed and recognised value are treated separately, your finance teams can maintain a much more kind of clean, accurate reporting. Now, crucially, when it comes to invoicing, we can also determine how the revenue is treated from an accounting perspective. So we can choose, if I go into my draft revenue recognition, to either recognise this as or identify this as deferred. For example, as we saw, we've invoiced up front but delivered over time, or we could choose for it to be accrued, which is when we've delivered the work before it's been invoiced. And that flexibility means your finance team aren't locked into a kind of single fixed approach. Your revenue can be aligned properly to delivery. So that protects your margins, avoids distorted monthly reporting, and gives you much more confidence in numbers. And we'll see shortly how that kind of filters through to the reporting side of things. Okay, just before we finish on the job section, so we've looked at Gantt charts, billing plans, and invoices. I'm going to head over to our job dashboard. Now, the job dashboard is like a mini P&L. So this gives us a lot of kind of live financial snapshot of the project. That could be total budget, it could be revenue billed or recognized, it could be costs incurred, forecasting margin, whatever else. But this is where the real value becomes clear because instead of waiting until month end to understand performance, we can see in real time whether we're ahead or behind, whether margin is holding, or whether deliveries align to billing. So for finance, it means much more clean reporting. For your accounting teams, it means much more proactive commercial control. And from an SLT point of view, again, it's better visibility on the numbers. But ultimately, it's what good revenue management delivers. It's clarity, it's predictability, and it's control. So here, for example, as I showed you on the billing plan and the invoices, we can see how much we've invoiced to quoted, but exactly what's been recognised to either invoice or quoted and how that impacts then in terms of our profit figures. Cool. So we've looked at billing plans at an individual job level. Now let's zoom out and look at it based on a kind of an agency-wide perspective. And for that, I'm going to head to my job list. So job list, as it suggests, is a list of all live jobs and projects across the business. But the real power here is that we're not just restricted to one static view. So we can create our own custom views. So you can filter this by client, by account lead, job type, status, team, however you want to do it. So when your teams or individuals log into this, finance, account management, whatever it is, you get to see those jobs that are very much relevant to you. Now, what's particularly useful from a revenue management perspective is that we can also switch this view to show the same jobs, but actually summarizing the billing plans. So this now gives us visibility or a summary of what's planned to be invoiced by percentage and value and all the values in both prior and future periods. And this is where we often see Synergist replacing multiple spreadsheets. So instead of maintaining a separate billing forecast sheet, it's all live within the system and fully connected to delivery. So if something changes, I know perhaps a milestone shifts or a value needs adjusting, then again, you have the ability just to simply click into a job, amend the billing plan entry, and that updates the forecast automatically. So no version controls, no duplicated effort, no disconnected spreadsheets. You can drill into one project or you can zoom out and see the bigger picture across the whole business. So it's really useful. Okay. Also in the system, and again, this is often restricted, possibly just into the finance team, we have what we call revenue management list. Now, this is typically where a lot of your finance team will spend, especially at month end. So this view gives us a consolidated job by job breakdown of revenue and cost movements for a defined reporting period. So across each of these jobs, we can see total purchase to date, accrued purchases, invoiced, total invoice to date, recognized, total recognized to date, and importantly, at the end, a final column showing the deferred or accrued balance per job. And again, you can filter this. So rather than just running separate reports and reconciling spreadsheets, everything is presented in one structured list, which is really, really useful and kind of saves a lot of time doing manual reporting. And at the bottom, we have totals across the entire business, which again, for the reporting period, giving finance instant summaries, which should then also align with the reporting periods or accounting months that finance are running to. Okay, so that's some of the individual static lists. Now let's have a look at how this revenue management information feeds into some of the reporting. I'm going to look at some of the dashboard options. Now, we're going to start at an individual user level at the personal dashboards. Now, this for me is one of the most powerful and often underused parts of the system. It's the ability for each individual user to configure their own dashboard and create their own number of tiles that are presented when they log in. Now, these tiles can be set up to highlight exactly what needs their attention. So if we're looking at managing revenue, you might have tiles set up which shows, I don't know, jobs due to be invoiced this month. Or it might be by exception. So you might have jobs with no billing plan set up, or jobs with no billings scheduled for a current period, or projects where recognized revenue maybe doesn't align with what you planned. So instead of waiting for finance to flag at month end, your teams can see these issues in real time. So it really turns revenue management from being very reactive to being much more proactive. Okay, so if we move now from the individual user dashboard to much more kind of leadership SLT insight, I'm going to head down to my management dashboard. What's powerful here is that the data that you can access in these reports can be viewed either based on what's been invoiced or what's been recognized. And the flexibility is really crucial. So finance may want recognized revenue for more accurate reporting, whereas your commercial team may want invoice revenue for more cash visibility. And you can toggle between the two without rebuilding the reports. And that's just simply by choosing whether we want to report based on invoiced or whether we want to report based on recognized. So you can see it kind of rebuilds those reports. So whether it's a financial summary of the business in terms of what's been invoiced, what our gross net profit is, who our top clients are, again, whether that's based on gross or net profit, and again, changing the toggle will change those figures. A summary of our invoice forecasts, so all those billing plans that we looked at on the jobs being pulled through to show us what's planned to be invoiced and what's actually been invoiced or recognised in a given period. And then finally, we have earnings per head. Now, this is a powerful operational metric. It's revenue divided by headcount. So based on what's been invoiced or what's been recognised, as I mentioned, and it allows benchmarking against targets. So for your leadership teams, this connects commercial performance directly with resource efficiency. So what this dashboard gives me is real-time financial clarity, cash visibility, profit accuracy, performance benchmarking, all without exporting data or building separate spreadsheets. So it brings revenue management, operational control, and financial reporting into one view. Okay, on the dashboards, I'm now going to show you another one, which is termed data analytics. Now, this dashboard gives you much more flexibility. So whereas the management dashboard provides a more structured reporting structure, this area allows you to build and customize your own reports depending on what your different teams need to see. So you can create your own reports view, you can filter this by client, by team, by department. You can group and present this differently to different teams. So for example, if I was a client service director, you may want to see revenue forecast just for your clients and the jobs that your clients are working on, or jobs where revenue recognition doesn't match what's been planned. Whereas finance might want to look at recognized revenue by month, or maybe the variance between planned and actual recognition. So here I can got one which is based on my clients. I want to see recognized, planned, and gross profit reported by month. You may want to look at one which is based on planned revenue to be recognized in a given month against recognized revenue. Or as I mentioned, doing a calculation, whereas for the business, and my demo system is called the Golden Agency, what are we planning to invoice or recognize in January against what has been recognized, and then the system producing a variance which may be positive or negative. So this is kind of really where the real value sits. It's one system, multiple perspectives, but giving you full transparency, whether you're a client service director, whether you're in finance, whatever else, you can customize these reports. Okay, before we wrap up, one final area, kind of one very important part of the puzzle. Everything we've looked at so far improves visibility and control, but what about the time that your finance team spend managing this manually? So we know in many agencies, revenue recognition still involves maintaining those spreadsheets I touched on, calculating accruals, deferrals, posting journals into your account system, reconciling invoices with your timing and P&L reportings. It's all very time consuming, repetitive, and very much open to error. Now, Synergist integrates with a large number of different account systems. So depending on what platform you're using will depend on how this works. But effectively, Synergist can post sales invoices directly into your accounting system. If and when, it can automatically post nominal journals. It can handle deferred income entries. And then if you have certain account systems, very popular ones like Xero, QuickBooks, Sage Business Cloud Accounting, Sage Intacct, then it can also move recognized revenue from your balance sheet to your P&L. So for example, if the invoice is raised and deferred, it posts the balance sheet automatically. Then as we recognize revenue in the system in line with perhaps delivery, Synergist can journal that out of your balance sheet into your P&L. So no more manual reconciliations or recalculations, no month-end spreadsheet adjustments, no double handling, and it turns what is often a manual finance process into a more structured, automated workflow. And that just doesn't improve accuracy, it really saves time each month. Okay, so if we just summarize what we've just looked at the job level, we can structure revenue properly through billing plans. At a kind of business level, we gain visibility across the whole agency. At individual level, personal dashboards can help you drive accountability. And as an SLT, the management dashboards provide clarity, invoiced and recognized figures. So the result isn't just better reporting, it's more predictable revenue, cleaner month-end process, stronger margin visibility, less manual intervention, and greater confidence in the numbers. So realistically, revenue management shouldn't feel like a last minute scramble at the end of every month. When it's done with the right structure and hopefully with the right system, it should become part of how the agency operates on a day-to-day basis. And that's ultimately what Synergist is designed to support. It's clarity, it's control, and confidence across your agency. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's short session on revenue management. There are lots of different options and ways to do it in the system. So if you are interested in kind of digging a little bit deeper, then do let us know. If it looks like Synergist could be of interest to your business, then again, we'd be more than happy to run you through it. If you want more content and webinars on insights into Synergist, then you can head across to our YouTube channel. There's plenty of webinars on there, and there's lots more insight as well on the agency works website as well. So anything you need, let us know. But really appreciate you joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.